Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for giving up your time on a lovely sunny Sunday to join the Pace in the Sun Live's digital event, Spain Masterclass. Today we've looked at sessions on mortgages, on the legal process, and interacted with a bunch of estate agents to find out their role in your potential purchase. Today we're now joined by Simon Eastman from Place in the Sun Currency. And Simon, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, marvelous. Thank you. Thanks for your time again today. So, just give us a quick overview of Place in the Sun Currency. What was it set up to do?
Fundamentally, it's set up to help Place in the Sun's clients with the sort of final piece of the puzzle when they're buying property overseas. Not something that people oversee, the currency side of it, but it's not something that's generally at the forefront of their mind when they're looking to buy a property in Spain. But it's certainly an important part. And A Place in the Sun is a trusted brand, so we wanted to establish A Place in the Sun currency to help those people utilising A Place in the Sun to find their property, to do the final bit, to actually get the funds over there to get the completion done and the keys in their hands.
Okay, so in basic terms, this is I'm a British subject. My money's in sterling, and I'm buying in Florida. I need dollars. I'm buying in Europe. I need euros. So in the most basic terms, it's getting currency from one jurisdiction into a different jurisdiction and different currency.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. And why is that? Why wouldn't I go to my bank for that?
So traditionally, people do still use their banks. I've been doing this for 15 years now, and the statistics are still fairly similar. It's still over 50% of people that send money internationally would use their bank. Of course, why would you not think that that's where you would go to move money? That's where your money is. It's in your bank, and that's what banks do. They move money around for you. People don't realise that when it comes to the actual currency exchange part of it, the exchange rate that the banks offer are very much lower than what they're buying the currency for, so to speak. The interbank level, which is what you would see online, if you Google pound to euro, pound to dollar, that level that you see there is the interbank. So it's the average banks are buying and selling billions of units between themselves. Whereas the rate that they actually give you when you go and speak to your bank over the counter or on the phone would be quite a way off that level. You may be talking 4, 5, 6 cents below. So that's the difference. That's where the margin, basically, the sort of commission that they're making, so to speak. Whereas using a commercial broker such as A Place in the Sun currency, we get you much closer to that mid rate because of where we buy the currency from. And therefore can pass on the savings to the individual. Okay,
so in basic terms, there's a trading rate that exists that's out there that moves up and down during the course of every day, and then somebody who's moving money around will make a small margin on that. And in the case of a high street bank, it's generally a larger margin, and in reference to A Place in the Sun currency and other brokers, there's other currency companies out there, obviously, tends to be a tighter margin and therefore more for your buck.
Exactly. I mean, the reason being is that we buy from the live market. So when a client asks us to buy some euros, for example, we get them a live rate. There's a small margin on there, and then that's the rate that they get. So we then buy the currency. Whereas with a bank, yes, they're there to make a profit, but also the exchange rates are centrally set the day before. So they have to have a wider margin to cover any movement during the day so as to not be losing out. Should a transaction go through, but the rates dropped, for example. So they tend to put a wider margin on just to cover themselves. Whereas with currency brokers, because we're buying and executing a transfer when a client requests it, we can work to much smaller margins.
Okay, so you're actually doing keeping an eye on it during the day rather than it being preset the day before and then adjusting your margins accordingly.
Exactly that, yeah.
Okay, so I'm all excited about buying a property in Spain, but I can't get out there at the moment. Why would I even consider having a conversation with you right now?
Well, it's worth doing sooner rather than later. Registering with a currency company means that you'll be getting regular updates on what the market's doing. Things are changing pretty quickly at the moment. You have to be pretty fluid with your decisions of what you're going to do. If you're in the mindset that you're hoping to go out to Spain and buy a property, but the only thing restricting you at the moment is obviously the travel restrictions. They could change fairly quickly, and you might decide that you're going to be heading over sooner than you thought to go and look at some properties. So it's worth having everything in place beforehand, sooner rather than later, so that if things do start moving forward, you're ready. Basically, you've got the currency company there in place. You're having conversations with them about what your requirements are, your budgets, and then it's our job to keep an eye on the rates for you and keep you informed, because there are opportunities where you might want to fix an exchange rate or buy some currency ahead of going across to find a property to help protect your budget of what you're working to.
And if somebody comes along to a place in the Sun currency and registers, what obviously moving money overseas is a tightly regulated, quite right, is a tightly regulated transaction. What documentation do you need to check with them before they can be registered or before they can trade? What's the process around that?
So with the registration, they provide personal details like name, address, and date of birth. And 99% of the time, we can do the ID verifications that we need to do using those details. There is occasions where we will require some further ID, so a passport copy, which can be emailed across, or a proof of address, for example. But that's fundamentally it from the sort of compliance side of it. The only other thing is we have to document the source of funds. So if you're moving £100,000 over to euros, we would just need to document where those funds have come from. It could be, a pension drawdown or a remortgage, or simply historic savings, and we would just need to document that. So it's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. Nothing extra than the Spanish side would be requesting as well. So it's good to get it all sorted out and sent across, and then you've got it all ready for when you find that place in Spain.
So generally speaking, if you're a British resident at a UK address, then it's quite straightforward to do the checks. Just tell me, so what sort of proof of provenance do you need for the funds then? When you say, just tell us it's a pension drawdown, what do you need to see in that circumstance?
For example, for a pension drawdown, you would have had a statement from the pension company saying this is X amount that you'll be drawing down. Something like that is perfect. Or for example, you may have sold a property here in the UK, and again, something like a closing statement from your solicitor would be perfect.
Okay, so I get registered with you. That's fairly straightforward. There's no commitment. I don't need to do anything. If I don't go and buy a house, it doesn't matter. That's just a basic registration.
Exactly, it's free of charge, no obligation. The registration will be, you'll be on the system. If you find somewhere in a year's time, you'll be there. It doesn't mean you're going to get hounded with phone calls. You get a regular newsletter by email, and you'll get an information pack out in the post when you register. And apart from that, we'll leave it with you to contact us as and when. Okay,
and then as and when does come around, what would you do? It sounds like we're kicking the high street banks here, but what would you do that a bank wouldn't? Yeah, again, I'm putting myself in the position of the buyer. I've now found a place. I'm very excited. I phoned you up. I remembered I registered with you a while ago, and you've stayed in touch. What advice and help do you do on my behalf?
So we're officially not allowed to advise on anything, but we are here to keep you up to date on what's happening with the markets. Your bank manager or bank teller isn't going to be calling you up on a regular basis and saying the exchange rate's got better by 2 cents, whereas we will. So obviously, if you call us up and say, we've found a property now, we're moving ahead with a purchase, at that stage is when your currency broker, your point of call, will be in close contact with you to keep you updated on what the markets are doing, to try and make sure you get the very best for your pound.
And then I come to, I've got a deposit to pay. So talk me through you holding my hand to pay my deposit in Spain.
Okay, so it's a really simple process. It's quite scary how easy it is to send money into the ether in another country. But it would simply be a case, for example, a holding deposit might be something in the region of €3,000 to reserve a property. So at that stage, you would just call up, say, I need €3,000. We get a live exchange rate, work out the sterling cost for those euros. There's a small transfer fee of £5 on anything under 30,000 sterling, so that would be an additional cost. Your total amount in sterling would be agreed, and if the client's happy, we take their instruction to purchase euros on their behalf. At that stage, a deal ticket is generated. This gives bank details for our sterling account. The client will arrange transfer via internet banking, telephone banking, whatever's easiest for them. Money comes across to us. They can securely provide us with the bank details of where we're sending the euros, be it to the agent or a lawyer or the vendor, for example, over in Spain. We get those set up, and that's the transfer made as soon as the sterling arrives.
So the flow of the money is from the buyer's account in the UK into your currency account. Then that's where conversion takes place in the simplest of terms, and then over to the lawyer or the estate agent or the seller.
Exactly. And with internet banking these days and fast pay, sterling transfers can come within 2 hours, and as long as it's early enough in the day for the cut-off, which is same day at 2:30, for payments across to Spain, everything can be done within 24 hours.
Yeah, these questions coming in. Callum Stewart asks, and it's definitely not a stupid question, because I think the same. Once my money is converted, where is it? So I think we've kind of answered that, but
in essence, your funds aren't converted. What we're doing is we buy currency for you, and you're then paying us for that currency in sterling. So we provide you with our sterling client account. The euros are sent into our euro client account. And once the client pays for the currency that they bought, it's then in a safeguarded client account ready to forward across to Spain. So all our client accounts are safeguarded.
Okay, yeah, Leslie Rose asks, is my money safe using this method? And there was an anonymous question, somebody saying, is money protected in all transactions? So it doesn't kind of go into your back pocket in the interim, does it? It goes into a client account, a protected client account.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all ring-fenced client accounts. If anything happened to the company, if anything happened to the bank, those funds can't be touched. They're totally protected.
Okay. So you're more proactive in kind of because I'm involved with the Place in the Sun currency. I know how you work. I mean, you spend all day speaking to potential buyers and talking them through this process, don't you? You basically do it all for them. It's one less hassle for them to think about.
Exactly. People are surprised at how easy it is, but it really is. But you know, most people don't have the time to be sitting watching the exchange rates all day long, whereas that's what we are paid to do. That's our job. So if we can just take that pressure off you, then it just makes the process a little bit simpler.
Okay. David Manning asks, is there a minimum amount that makes a transfer worthwhile? Well, if you've got money to transfer for whatever, then you'll need to transfer it, David. But he says he's got £55,000, which is certainly not minimal, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, typically, it used to be said in the industry that we could save you up to 4% over the bank. So if you're talking about 55,000, that's a couple of £1,000 in your pocket, David, for just using a currency broker rather than using a bank.
Okay. We have a question as well. Who pays your fees, Simon, and what are they? So we've kind of covered that. It's the margin, isn't it? You've got to make, you've got to have a business. So there's a small margin in there that's pretty modest.
Exactly. It's built into the exchange rate. You don't see any on top commission or fees or anything like that, apart from the transfer fee, as I mentioned before, which is minimal. It's £5, and it's only if it's under 30,000 that we're transferring for you. So chances are on a larger amount for a completion that would be waived anyway. But yeah, it's a modest margin that we work to. We're here to get people good exchange rates and stay in business as a company, of course. But the saving over the bank is the main thing to focus on.
Okay. So we talked about the me being the buyer and the deposit. Just tell me about a typical relationship that you'd have with a buyer like me, and then the fulfillment, the balance payment on the property, and the sort of the timeline on that, if you will.
So normally we would have been speaking to a client for some time, but quite often they'll register with an immediate requirement. We would speak generally fairly regularly when it comes to they've got a payment to make, just with market updates, and just to get updates on whether they've been asked for the money to come across from a lawyer. The initial holding deposit reservation fees is normally pretty quick because they want to take the property off market. We're then looking normally a couple of weeks until the next transfer needs to go across, and then typically 6 to 8 weeks maybe later for the completion. We would be speaking to the client throughout that period of time, with market updates, as I said, because there's various ways of where you can buy currency. You don't just have to wait until you're asked to send it across. You can utilize the safeguarded client accounts I mentioned. So you can buy your currency on day one if you wanted to for the whole purchase, and then you know exactly what it's costing you in sterling from the off, and that's never going to change regardless.
Okay, that touches a question from Andy Hughes about can you agree a purchase price in sterling to avoid any market fluctuations? So this is something that you'd call a forward, is that right?
Yeah, that's a forward. I mean, agreeing a price in sterling for an overseas property purchase is pretty rare. But if you wanted to know yourself what the cost would be, you know the euro amount. You can generally work out typically what the fees are going to be. With Spain, it's roughly 10 to 15% on top. So you can
they're the legal fees and disbursements and stamp duties, not your fees. Yeah,
exactly. So that's in addition to the cost of the property. And then if you're looking to fix the exchange rate, that is a forward contract. So you can fix the rate for anything up to 2 years ahead, which means that you buy the currency, but the delivery and the settlement for those funds are set at a date in the future. So with buying a property, if you're thinking, right, it's going to be 8 weeks until I'm completing, but I want to know exactly what it's costing me now, you can do that by locking in with a small deposit.
Okay, so very quickly, the advantages of that and the potential disadvantage.
So it's two sides to every coin, of course. The advantage is knowing the cost up front, knowing that cost won't change. It's good for budgeting. Flip side is, if the market moves up in your favour for buying euros, for example, from 112 to 115 over the course of the time where you're completing on your property, you can't then change the exchange rate. You've locked in the rate, and unfortunately you can't do anything about changing that without cost. You know, that's sort of in the realms of speculation, but yeah, once you've locked in the rate, that's it. You don't then benefit if the rates move up.
Yeah, my colleague Richard Way, who's on hosting many of these webinars during this month, always makes the point that you're not there to play the currency markets. This is not a speculative gamble. You're there to buy the property of your dreams, and actually knowing the final price rather than waiting to see how much it might cost you is not really where most people want to be for peace of mind, because you don't want to find out it's suddenly going to cost you a few £1,000s extra and you've not budgeted for that.
Exactly. And certainly with the way things are at the moment, obviously in the midst of a pandemic, but also with Brexit looming as well, there's potential for exchange rates to be quite volatile going forward. So locking in the exchange rate is something that many clients find advantageous, just because there's too much risk to it otherwise.
Okay, so I could come to you and ask you to transfer, say, £5,000 on a deposit for a property that I found. You give me a rate. I'm happy with that rate, and I think it's not going to get any better than that for 8 months down the line. And I can buy the balance, I guess, the £145,000. I can fix that rate there and then. What do I need to pay you to fix that rate?
Typically, the deposit taken is 10%. So if you were looking at 145,000, you'd be looking at 14,500 within a few working days to secure that rate. And then the balance is paid on the date that we fix it to. If things move quickly and you need the funds earlier, that's no problem. You just obviously send in the balance and we can draw down those funds.
Okay. So the £14,500, again, it's not a, well, we keep using this word fee. It's not a fee that's going to you or anything. That's just basically the deposit. The deposit
Exactly.
is a better word. I used fee, you use deposit. You know what you're talking about. It's
Exactly.
a deposit.
It's a 10% deposit. The 90% balance is paid as and when we agree the forward rate to. So it's no additional fees.
So the people that you're speaking to day in, day out, are a lot of them choosing to do that then?
Yeah, a lot of people are. I think COVID has had some effect on that, but even beforehand, with the fluctuations that we were seeing due to Brexit, the ups and downs that we saw surrounding the general election, etc. If the market moved up and people had a currency requirement within a month or two, we were seeing a lot of people locking in when the rates went up because they've seen them so low. When they were talking about no deal Brexit, you know, we were bordering towards parity. So as soon as they went back up again, people are taking advantage and locking in the rates. So I think we will see once movement starts happening, people can get back over and start buying properties again. I think we'll start to see forwards being bought again, certainly with the looming Brexit at the end of the year.
And if you wanted to be a bit of a fence sitter, like I often find myself, I am, of that balance of 145,000, you could choose to forward fix, say, half of it and see with the other 50% whether you did better or worse off.
Absolutely, people do that. They hedge their bets. They do a third, a half, or whatever it might be, yeah, do exactly that. See how it goes, but no, they've secured some.
Okay. Well, John Wingfield asks, if the price is in euros, how do I calculate how many pounds? Well, phone up a place in the Sun currency and have a chat, and you'll get told a rate. Another question: what's the lowest amounts of money you transfer? Do you do holiday money? I mean, look, if somebody's transferring £1,000 and they want to register with us, we would, but you're principally specialist in British people buying an overseas property and maintaining that property. Is that right?
Exactly. We're possibly the only currency company that simply specialises in people buying their property overseas. We don't do corporate business or anything like that. Predominantly, smaller payments will be made through us, but it's for people that have already bought a property. They might be just furnishing their Spanish bank account for paying some bills, or they're going over for a couple of weeks and they want to just top up their account. Or might be a mortgage payment, for example. We do have a regular payment system, which is a monthly sort of standing order, so to speak. So a client sets up a regular payment to us, and we then simply make a regular payment across to their account in Spain. It's all done within the same day, and there's no costs on that if it's over a certain amount. So it's nice and easy. People don't need to call or speak to anyone. It just happens automatically. But generally speaking, we don't deal with cash. We don't do holiday money cash, but we don't have any sort of minimums at all. No.
Okay, well, that would help you, David Heath. David's asking about regular payments such as a UK pension. So that would be an ideal example of that.
Exactly that.
Okay. And a couple of people have asked about the requirement for a Spanish bank account. There was, well, two people asked that anonymously. Emma Burt asked, do I need a Spanish bank account to deposit the money? No,
in a word. Generally, what happens is, and I'm sure this has been covered in other seminars, is if you buy a property over in Spain, quite often the lawyers will have power of attorney, request power of attorney, or be given power of attorney, which means they can do all the running around for you. They can get the NIE numbers and they can set up a bank account for you. Generally, what happens with the deposits is the first one, as mentioned earlier, may go to the lawyer, may go to an agent, or may go directly to the vendor to take the property off the market. Typically, the next deposit of 10% less what you've paid will go directly to the lawyer. And then as we move towards completion, if the power of attorney has been given, a bank account would have been set up for you so that the main chunk of funds for your completion can go into the account in your name in Spain, and then a banker's draft is taken from there. So you don't need one to buy a property. It's something that will happen during the process.
Yeah, okay, so that's clear. I think there's quite a few questions on this. So I'm a British buyer. I've got no fiscal representation in Spain. I don't have a bank account. I go over there, fall in love with the property, and I want to pay a deposit. Come to you, transfer 3, 5, whatever the holding deposit is, £1,000, and that just goes to the estate agent or the lawyer. I don't need a bank account to do anything to do with that.
Exactly, not needed.
And then straight after that, my lawyer would act on my behalf to get me an NIE number. An NIE number will then enable me to get a bank account. And that's when I would transfer the balance to the bank account to pay the balance on the home.
Sure. I think you can actually, you can get bank accounts without the NIE number. It's a different type. It's a non-resident account. What the lawyers will open you is obviously one with an NIE number, so a resident bank account. But you can look online, and some of the major banks over in Spain do have the ability to set up accounts without actually even going over to Spain, I believe.
Okay. Rebecca Black asks, so what percentage do you charge? Well, Rebecca, I think if we're saying that banks are kind of 4.5%, and we can save 2 to 3%, then 1.5%. I mean, it depends on all sorts of factors, doesn't it? But
absolutely. I mean, to be quite frank, I would say normally if people are asking me what they should base their sort of budget on, I normally tell them if you're seeing a rate online which is interbank, take a cent off it and then sort of use that as a budget, as a rough guidance of 1 cent, because but it does depend on volumes that are going through at the time, the market volatility. Depends on what rates we are able to get from our sources. So there isn't a fixed percentage, but as you say, a percent really is sort of a rough guidance.
Okay, so when you say 1 cent off the interbank rate, I go onto Google and I say, what's the exchange rate today? That's showing me a rate that I can't get, isn't it?
Exactly. That's showing you the interbank level, which is, as I mentioned before, is the average of buying and selling between the banks. So when they're trading billions of units backwards and forwards, as brokers, we don't get that rate. We get a percentage below there. We put our small margin on, and then that's the rate the client gets. So as I said, a cent, 1.5 cent, it's not an accurate, that's not what you get, but it's a rough guidance.
Okay, and Rebecca Mackey asks, would I use your services to transfer funds from a UK bank account to a Spanish bank account, or is that better done via my bank? Well, I think we have gone through that a couple of times. So if you were late joining, Rebecca, then this video will be live on our website sometime. Hopefully on Monday, we'll get all these recordings edited and just stuck up on the website, and you can watch those on demand for the earlier questions. So our main website is aplaceinthesun.com. But the website that this month-long activity is taking place is the one that you can see on screen now, aplaceinthesun.digital.co.uk. And there we have all our lovely exhibitors. Let me show you where they are. This is the page where we have the webinars, which you know all about, because that's where you've registered to be watching what you're seeing today. Then over in our Meet the Exhibitors section, we have the exhibitors who are taking part split out by country. So here's all our Spanish exhibitors. There are lawyers, estate agents, and in the case of Simon, there's a Place in the Sun currency. Click on that card there. Takes you through to the currency business, a Place in the Sun currency. There's a short video, there's an explanation of the services, and this is where you can book an appointment. So if we jump forward to next week, there's the available slots. You can just click on one of those, put in your email address. We're going to have a meeting next week, Simon, is that all right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, send that off.
That's good.
And there's a meeting all set on Zoom, and you'll be sent a link for a Zoom meeting. A couple of videos there from A Place in the Sun. There's the lovely Simon looking all shiny and polished, and his colleagues Robin and Mimsy. Some useful brochures there for A Place in the Sun currency, And if you just have a question for Simon that you want to send him, then just ping it over on the message box at the bottom of the page. Let's just see if we can cover off. There's a flood of questions coming in, which is always good to see. Alan Ferguson, that's one I wanted to cover off. We mentioned about locking in a rate. He said, do you get a better rate for locking in for a longer period? That's not the case, is it?
No, it's actually the opposite as well. So when you're buying forward, for every month you go forward, there's a slight reduction in the exchange rate. It's just a premium based on the actual currency pairing that you're exchanging, the market volatility and timescales. So generally, it's about 15 to 20 points per month. So if you were going forward 5 months, for example, you might lose a whole cent. So if you were buying at 112 today, but wanted to book a forward, you would be looking at 111 in 5 months' time. You have to weigh up where you think the market might be, because it could be a lot lower than that in 5 months' time or 3 months' time or whatever. And that's the reason why you're locking in on the forward, is to have some stability and take the risk away.
Okay, thank you, Simon. So what else do we have coming up for you? Oh, sorry, forgive me. One very specific question here from Scott Whitehead. He said, I have a business in the UK and the USA, and my business pays contractors in Argentina, Spain, Italy, USA, moving around a lot of foreign currency. Can you assist with this? I think the point there, Scott, is no, we specialize in British buyers of overseas property. So that's what we're a very bespoke service. And that's what a Place in the Sun currency does. There is a sister company. By all means, message Simon on the Place in the Sun currency page. There's a sister company called Currency Index, and Simon would happily point you in the right direction of somebody who can talk to you about that. So what else do we have for you during the course of today? That's our currency session just coming to an end. We're back on at 1:30. At 1:30, we have a Place in the Sun editor, Liz Rowlinson, and she's been joined by a couple of our exhibitors and panelists to discuss managing a holiday home. So that's maintenance fees, utility fees, community fees, fiscal responsibilities if you're renting out a property. So a load of insight in that session that's coming up at 1:30. So we're letting you off the hook now. A short break. If you've been with us since 10:30, thank you for coming along. It's been fun for this morning session, and more of this stuff coming later on. So just remains for me to thank Simon for his time. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's been really useful. Thanks for your insight, and we'll speak to you again soon. All the best.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you in half an hour.
Bye.